Happy
Hello.
Thanks for
Hey,
sending
Coach
some
Cassie.
I think we just talked over each other a little bit. But hey, thanks for everybody being here today. We'll gonna spend some time and answer some Q&As, but initially sound off in the comments, kind of let us know where you're tuning in from, what branch you served in, how many years you served, and your favorite Thanksgiving side dish. I'm just kidding about the last one.
You'll make me hungry. It's about to be dinner time here in London. Where are you guys tuning in from? Yeah, sound off in the comments, or even share with us if you are a VACI Elite member. Shout out your coaches. I'd love to see which ones of my clients are joining us here today for Q&A. Side dish, huh? What's your favorite side dish, Coach Cassie, while we're waiting for these comments to come in?
Oh, it's so hard to choose. Honestly, anything with potatoes. I make 2 types of potatoes for Thanksgiving every year, and I eat them both. So that's always my fave.
I hear that. Yeah, I miss the Filipino food spread that my mother makes at home. So I'll definitely be missing that, not being able to go home for Thanksgiving this year. But I am starting to see some vets tuning in now. Johnny Ray, thank you for joining us from Kansas City. Yeah, Army 11 Bravo.
Jim Morris, tuning in from Oregon, 80 to 83. Thanks for being here.
See Don Lombard, U.S. Marine Corps, 74 to 90, 90%. And he's got Coach Charles. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Len, there's one of my vets. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. So nice to see.
Oh, Mitch, he's on our team.
Yeah, Mr. Lockwood. Yep, from Annapolis, Maryland. Robert Bickle, thanks for joining us.
Tom Graff joining in from Minnesota. We appreciate you all being here. We appreciate your service. We're excited to chat with you today a little bit and answer some of your questions.
Oh, I see one of mine, Paul Knox. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Paul. We got Miss Eldridge, served in the Army 75 to 79. Mike's here. Paulette, Air Force.
From North Carolina. Thanks for tuning in. Got Thomas Beatty, Army 78 to 2011. Amazing. Thank you for your service.
Lauren's here, a Marine. Always love seeing women Marines.
Mike Johnson, U.S. Army.
A lot of you guys tuning in. We got Mike. He did Army and Air Force, 91 to 2012. He's got Coach Chuck. Recently received 70%. That's awesome. Congrats to you, and hopefully you guys keep moving towards the rating you deserve.
Amazing. Got Wayne Kern, Army, 68 to 71. Thanks for joining us today, Mr. Kern.
We got about another minute here, and then we'll kind of kick things off. Let's see. We got Sarah here, Navy, 100%. Glad you reached the rating that you deserve and still tuning in to get some knowledge.
Good stuff. We got Eldridge, Army, 75 to 79. And then even as we're getting started, we'll probably come in, do a little intro, kind of give you guys some information. And if you guys want to start to put some questions in there, I see, Robert, you got one. We'll make sure to circle back to you once we get some disclaimers and all that out the way. But now that it's 5 after, let's kind of just jump right in. Hello, veterans. I am Coach Rachelle Seabury. Thanks for joining Coach Cassie and I here today. We are both so honored to be able to answer some questions for you all and hopefully give you some great information you can take away as you're going through your VA claims process. I've been with VACI for about 3 years now, and it's been such an amazing experience meeting and serving veterans and being able to celebrate so much life change. It's an honor having grown up a Navy brat with my dad who served over 20 years and as a military spouse to my husband who's currently still serving in the Army. I absolutely love what I have the privilege to do every single day, and another great privilege to be here today with Coach Cassie. Hey, Coach Cassie.
Hey there, everybody. So, like she said, I'm Coach Cassie. I'm always super excited to be here. You'll hear me say that all the time in all my classes. And I'm not a veteran, but I do have the opportunity to serve those who served through the claims process for over 2 years, actually going on 3 years now, come January. So, time really flies when we're having a good time and changing lives for sure. As far as where I heard about VA Claims Insider, my father and my brother and a couple other family members used VACI's sources and resources and coaching to get to the disability goal that they deserve. And so I just knew it was something I wanted to be a part of, something where I'm actually making a lasting impression on someone. And so I'm glad to be here with you all.
That's great. And we are so lucky to have you, Coach Cassie. And a testament to that, I did see one of your clients post in there that they are 100% PNT. Doesn't say a name, it just says U.S. Air Force 89 and 99, 100% PNT Coach Cassie. So shout out. I wanted to bring that out there because that's what it's all about, celebrating just like our veterans getting the rating that they deserve. So before we dive into Q&A, let me just get this disclaimer out of the way. We are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coaching consulting company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted independent medical professionals in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions, or IMOs, for a wide range of disability conditions. All right, so now that that disclaimer is out of the way, just wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of a little bit about what VACI's elite program is about, as we'll kind of go into a lot of the information and education that you get as an elite member. Our education-based membership programs include access to use our proprietary resources, reduced rates to our preferred provider network for medical examinations, disability evaluations, and credible VA Nexus letters or independent medical opinions for a wide range of disability conditions. We serve veterans live 24/7, 365, and in community with fellow disabled veterans from around the world. You have access to our live classes via Zoom, offered 3 times a day between coffee with the coaches, where we have built quite a family in there, new client orientation, mental health exam preparation, medical exam preparation. We've also got a Women's Wednesday that we offer bi-weekly. But most importantly, your veteran coach team will lead you through our educational resource and the VA claims process from beginning to end. And we don't quit until you quit. So you want to kind of share with us a little bit, Coach Cassie, about what the method is and kind of how we've perfected and simplified this process a bit?
Yeah, for sure. So we're all about what we call the SEM or SEAM method, the SEM. And what does that stand for? It's strategy, education, and medical evidence. And so we're going to lead you through the claims process and empower you to take action with the right personalized strategy. That's often going to result in the VA giving you the VA rating you deserve in less time. The strategy is really important. You're going to establish a roadmap based on the evidence that you have, maybe evidence that you need, and we'll assess and annotate any gaps between where you are now and where you should be. So trust your coach and trust the process once you do sign up. So as far as education, we're going to equip you with the knowledge of how VA rates various conditions and how to understand your own symptoms. And that way you can speak about those things when it comes time to during things like CNP exams, and you'll see a lot of great preparation for those. And then as far as medical evidence, we can't teach on medical evidence. Medical evidence really does win claims. So based on your strategy, you may utilize your treating provider or a private provider to establish the evidence you need to support your claims. That will be things like nexus letters, DBQs, diagnoses. Those are all really helpful in establishing a fully developed claim. Once you've established all your evidence and you're ready to submit, you'll be able to utilize your coach to make sure you're filing things properly with the right forms and in the right format.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, the SEM method, it really breaks down and fulfills the Kaluza triangle, right? What it takes to get a service connection by law, right? So if you're going through your paperwork and you're not quite sure if it's there, what it can connect, what you're eligible for, sometimes you go through this entire process and you get stuck, right? You get frustrated, or you get underrated, right? Maybe you were able to get successfully service connected for a claim, but you just don't feel like you were able to articulate or get the rating that you deserve. Our VA Claims Insider Elite program is for you if you are stuck, frustrated, or underrated. You can sign up directly with Coach Cassie or me with our links. It's been put in the chat, and they'll flash it below throughout this presentation, and we'd love to partner with you on your VA claims journey. But if you're still not sure if the Elite program is for you, that is perfectly fine. Take the no-risk leap of faith towards getting the benefits you deserve by law by signing up for a free discovery call today. Visit www.vaclaims.help. Get connected with someone, go over some of your questions with you just to see if our program is the right fit for you. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. I think we're at the point where we can kind of jump in to some of our Q&A. We love to be able to hold sessions like this to hopefully arm you with the knowledge and get the benefits that you deserve, or at least clarify some things no matter where you're at in your process.
You're right, Coach Cassie. I think half the battle of filing for a VA claim is finding accurate information in the sea of the internet, right? When you want to make sure you have enough, but not too much submitted to the VA, it's hard. And having someone on your side or in your corner to assist you in processing of your claim in a timely manner, it's just so that you're more confident in getting the rating you deserve, finding all of your paperwork, putting it all together to support your claim. All of that can leave you with questions. So let's hear them. Let's hear what questions you guys have for us.
Yeah, well, we'll keep our promise. I know Robert had put some question out there, so we'll start with that. It's Robert Bickle, and he says, I keep hearing rumors about the VA changing the rules around tinnitus, PTSD, and other things. So what do we know about this? I do know that there's a lot of proposals, right? A lot of proposals to change how things are rated or if things should be merged. But until the VA outright comes and says, this is the change and this is when it's effective, a lot of those are just proposals, and they may not make it past that phase. So as coaches here and in our internal, training system, we're always getting the updated information on what the actual changes are, when they go into effect, so that we can equip the veterans we work with that knowledge. So I know that's not a specific answer for each condition, but we'd love to give you more information on it. If you want to join in, check with your coach and see, what issues you're dealing with and how those things might be affected by potential changes.
Right on. Yeah, that's the big thing, right? We call ourselves the insiders for a reason, because we like to get the information out there in live time as soon as they're released, and make sure that you have what you need in case it might affect you personally. So that's great. Great question. Let's see, who else has a good question for us? I know we're going to get a lot of timeline questions. That seems to always be in the questions. So I'm going to say it. We're going to answer them because we're going to try our best to answer them. But you guys might not like the answer every time. I saw William Hughes, Marine Corps, 1980 to 84. If I have a higher level review, how long before the VA makes a decision? If I have medical records to prove my claim showing that I had the medical issues while in the military. So a higher level review is basically you are appealing the denial or the decision, whether it was the rating or the service connection for your claim. So that means you already submitted the evidence and they made a decision that you are appealing. So as far as you saying that I have the medical records to prove my claim, if that's new evidence that wasn't already submitted, then that's not what you would bring up in an HLR. You would actually bring that up in a supplemental and provide the VA with new and relevant evidence to overturn your previous denial. For the higher level review on va.gov, it is taking on average of 125 days to process claims. And that's just on the VA website. It varies on situation. So I know that added piece there was just to address that you have medical records. In this program, when you have a situation, whether it's I have new medical evidence or they simply got the claim wrong, that's the best thing about having a coach, is deciding which path is best for your specific situation. So if you've got a coach, definitely speak with them about, if it's the HLR and it's processing, or whether if this gets denied, you guys have additional evidence to submit to your claim. But good luck to you, William.
Good question. So we'll kind of just go down the line here. Well, this one's not necessarily a question. I think that a question can somewhat be answered. So Mike Johnson says, my doctor got upset when I thanked him for helping me with my claim, and now it's clear he may not help me anymore. There are some times where civilian providers either don't feel comfortable or don't understand what it is you may be needing for your claim's sake. And so they might not be very helpful. In some cases, your private providers can diagnose and provide opinions on how that might be service related. So if you're not having success with the provider that you have access to locally, look into other options. I know through our process, we have a preferred provider network. It's a separate entity, but it is providers that can diagnose certain conditions, provide nexuses based on your evidence. They're called Telemedica. And so if you want to get linked up or with a coach, we'll see if maybe that's an option for you if you need new evidence to support any new claims.
Good stuff. Absolutely. Robert Bickle has question number 2 in here. I keep hearing that obstructive sleep apnea is being denied a lot, in quotes, by the VA. Any thoughts on the success rates when linking to other respiratory issues such as rhinitis? So I'm going to answer this by bringing forth the Kaluza triangle, right? The success rate for any claim is if you are fulfilling the Kaluza triangle. So if you have a diagnosis for sleep apnea, if you've got a link to service, so in this condition, if you're linking it to rhinitis, so obstructive sleep apnea secondary to rhinitis, then you need a medical nexus. If you don't have a medical nexus opinion that supports the opinion that obstructive sleep apnea is at least as likely as not caused by your rhinitis, then that is the deciding factor of the success rate. But I have seen personally as a coach for some of my vets get linked for sleep apnea secondary to rhinitis because their medical evidence and their medical opinion supported it. So in the right way, right direction.
Yeah, and I will say, as coaches, historically, we see that maybe some claims are approved for sleep apnea more often, secondary to a breathing issue than maybe mental health, but both have been approved in the past. It really is, like she said, about the Kaluza triangle, about the evidence that you have to support the condition and how it's connected. But I will say that there was a comment just right above Robert's, actually, Ivan Luis, I'm not sure the last name, I don't want to mess it up, but was denied for sleep apnea secondary to PTSD. So if you have a diagnosis and maybe you just didn't have a nexus, that could be something that would be helpful, and you can turn around and file a supplemental claim with that new and relevant evidence.
Good call. What else?
Let's see. Johnny Ray has a statement, which, again, I think I can answer as far as kind of a question goes. Johnny Ray says he's about to put in a claim for bad heartburn. Maybe that could be GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. Just talking about some treatments they may do and have done. So when you're filing a claim for GERD, I would say just understand how the VA rates that condition, understand some of the symptoms that fall under GERD and what all it may cause, and know which of those you deal with. Be able to talk about that. And if the providers that you've been diagnosed with GERD from have noted that for you, all of that's going to be really helpful evidence towards your claim.
Good stuff. Yeah, GERD is a pretty a good one, but it is one of those conditions that definitely relies heavily on your medical records. So it's not just about heartburn, right? That is one of the symptoms, but like Coach Cassie says, understand what all of the associated symptoms and the rating criteria is and get to the doctor. If they are prescribing you pills to help, just the biggest, identifier on it is severity, frequency, and duration of your symptoms, and then get those documented.
Awesome.
I see a good question here, I think, from Maurice James, Army 93 to 15. What does it mean when the VA says your claim is still open and waiting for a decision? And we close the notice for secondary action required. We close the notice for second signature. So you're reading into the details of the claims processing, right? So the stage is pending decision, if that's where it's at. In the claims process. The date that your claim was last updated is also another thing that I like to clue in on whenever a vet's checking on their claim status, is what date was the claim last updated, just to see if it's still current, if it hasn't been like surpassed 2-3 months since anyone updated the claim in the system. As far as these notes that you're seeing are closed, that's really the VA communicating with one another in the processing of your claim. So it can get really confusing because it's not meant for us. Right? It's not meant for us to interpret or understand. So it doesn't mean anything to you, I guess, specifically. It's not really meant to tell you anything, but the claim is still in pending decision. I hope that helped.
What I try to take from it is that you're seeing things be done, right? They're being done on the back end. You can't really tell exactly what's happening, but things are being done. It is being processed, meaning it's moving in the right direction. So continue.
Somebody's looking at it.
Exactly. Rather than, it waiting to be looked at. All right. So Floyd has a question. It's a little bit of a long one. He recently had shoulder surgery to repair a rotator cuff tear that resulted from an initial injury while in the Navy. And it is in medical records. He says, does he have any recourse with the VA after the fact? Would he still be eligible for benefits, potential disability, things of that nature? So it's all going to go back to that Kaluza triangle, right? If you have a current disability and you also have active duty medical records for it, the thing that would be missing is a nexus or medical opinion speaking to why your current disability is likely linked to that in-service event. Now, if there's been a significant amount of time that's passed since leaving active duty, you really want to be able to bridge the gap on medical care. So if you got injured in active duty and then didn't get seen for 10 years and then got the shoulder looked at again and assessed and started getting treatment, you just might need to fill that gap somehow. A medical provider might have a more difficult time bridging the nexus between active duty to current if there is such a large gap in between. But really, a records review from a provider can give a lot of feedback. I know we talked about Telemedica a little earlier, separate entity, our preferred provider network. That's kind of a service that they provide. They can look over active duty records, current records, and anything in between to give feedback if a nexus can be made from a medical perspective. So look into it, Floyd, and if you want, further coaching on it, sign up and let us dive into it with you a little bit.
Great question. I'm pulling this question from Wayne Kern. I read it over, but I'd also, after I kind of take a stab at it, Coach Cassie, I'd like your opinion on what you would do. That's the thing about having two different coaches, is sometimes coaches do things a little different and we might do things the same, right? So Wayne Kern said, had CMP last Monday, got a hearing loss increase 30 to 40%, but was looking for a much higher as my hearing loss and tinnitus are off the charts. The examiner took all of 15 minutes, which is not a normal hearing test. And she told me I was not cooperating because I was not guessing at the words, options, HLR. All right. So my first takeaway from this is, if you did not think that it was a good CNP, right? The fact that you've already got a decision, this is for everyone else that's tuning in. If you feel like you did not have a good CNP exam, you want to report that as a bad CNP exam immediately after your exam, not after you receive a decision. Okay, because then you'll have the ability to potentially get another evaluation rescheduled. At this part, since you got your decision, we can't really report the bad CNP, because then right now it looks like you're just not happy with the results that you got from the exam or from the rating. The second thing I'd like to clue you in on is look at the rating criteria for hearing loss and tinnitus. Hearing loss and tinnitus, however, are two separate conditions, right? So are you rated for tinnitus, which maxes out at 10%? And then if your hearing loss is at 40% now, look at what the rating criteria is for an increase. And then if it's a matter of, okay, how do I support that I warrant an increase? You always want medical evidence to support your claim. So if you have a private audiologist that you can use, get a hearing test done. And if you feel like that hearing test supports the increased rating that you should have been awarded, file it as a supplemental claim. Submit that to the VA because it's supporting the rating that you feel like you deserve, and could potentially get you that increase you're looking for. Coach Cassie.
Yeah, that's good. That's exactly where my brain went. I would add the VA makes it pretty easy to see what does warrant a higher rating in the decision letter. So on the decision letter, go down to the rationale section. I know it's like 15 pages and we just want to throw it away when it's not what we deserve, right? But keep going down to the rationale section. You're going to see, hey, we rated you this because of these symptoms. You would warrant a higher rating if you dealt with these symptoms. And if the evidence was already there that you do warrant that higher rating based on the symptoms they've listed, that's when a higher level review would be good. Or like Coach Seabury said, if you need new and relevant evidence to show that severity, supplemental all the way. But you're asking the right questions. Just look into a little bit more of the details on the symptoms. And if you're rated properly at that 40% based on the evidence and you don't need new evidence, maybe don't file an appeal. See if there's other options for you to continue to get the rating you deserve.
You know, that actually brings out a really good point. Sometimes, right, I get a vet who's like, man, my tinnitus impacts me. It's crazy that I'm only getting 10% for it. So you might want to look into kind of those secondary conditions, right? What are the other conditions that or symptoms that you're experiencing that are conditions that you should be getting treated and diagnosed for, separate from the hearing loss and the tinnitus that you could potentially get secondaries for. So thanks for adding that in. That definitely should be addressed. What else?
Let's find another good one.
A lot of comments. Had some vets who had some wins that are, you know, putting that in there and encouraging other veterans. I always love to see that, right? Whenever we have veterans who have reached their goals and want to encourage other veterans not to give up, that's what this community is all about, just the support and encouragement. I love it.
Let's see. Robert Bickerel has a third question. He says he knows that there are delays, but do you know what the average is for a decision from submission of the VA's DBQ to the VA from their provider? So, you know, again, when it comes to timeframes, whether it's when will I get my CMP scheduled, when will I get the final decision, you know, when will these different things happen? It's so hard to pinpoint because it's different based on everybody. And if there's a higher volume in your area. So I think that the CMP examiner has a set amount of time, and I don't want to misspeak. It may be a month, but it may be less or a little bit more. But the CMP examiner has a specific amount of time to get that report done and get it sent back to the VA. And then once the VA has it, they'll review that and your private evidence, if any, to make that final decision. So timeframes are so hard to pinpoint, but that's kind of the steps that you're looking at.
Yeah, let's talk steps though, because even the next question right below Robert's, Bill Mackey, Navy 85 to 90, submitted my claim 13 weeks ago. How long should I wait to follow up? So let's really understand the claims process, right? And that way you kind of get a good idea of, okay, what am I waiting on, right? And then why would it go from this stage to this stage? So from submission, right? Let's just assume you submitted a fully developed claim with all the supportive evidence that you need, because that's a big factor on the timeline of the processing of your claim. Okay. So in assuming that you submitted a fully developed claim with all of your evidence, the next step from there is being assigned to a CNP examiner, right? That part of it is really what's taken the most time. And from what I've been seeing. However, since the VA has contracted companies, right, you've got VES, QTC, OptumServe, Loyal Source, aside from the VA conducting the C&P exams, once you've been assigned now, right, whether it's soon or in the near future, after a C&P exam, the C&P examiner's job is to complete the DBQ and now send it to the VA rater, right, the adjudicator that's going to be adjudicating your claim. So until that gets to the adjudicator's desk, the clock hasn't started on the processing of your claim. So it's really just a matter of how long, one, to get scheduled for the C&P exam, two, for the C&P examiner to submit their findings and reportings to the VA, and then the clock starts on the adjudicator making a decision. And depending on how many conditions you submitted at one time is also another factor, that whether the adjudicator processes your claim first and gets it out of the way, or whether they put it at the bottom of the stack because there's a lot of claims to process at one time. So all of that, honestly, goes into strategy. When you sign up for the elite program, those are all the things that your coaches like Cassie and I look at when your goal is to get the rating that you deserve in the shortest amount of time, right? That goes into strategy, not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, because who knows how long that will take. It's like watching water boil.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No, that was a really good breakdown, though, because it does just give a little insight to all the factors that go into it and the time it takes. All right. Well, we have a really good question here from, I believe it's Valletta A. Morris. They say, when is it too late to submit a claim for military-related disability? It is never too late, right? It's never too late to pursue the rating you deserve. We have a lot of veterans that come through our program, even my own father who used the program, that waited 20 plus years to pursue a claim, whether it was thinking they didn't deserve it, thinking someone else deserves it more. Maybe they didn't have the time. Maybe they just didn't know that they could even do that. It's never too late. What it all boils down to is evidence, the evidence to support the conditions that you want to file for and the things that you may be dealing with. So, Valletta, don't get discouraged. If you've never filed before, start thinking about what you're dealing with. Start thinking about what you might have dealt with during active duty and get a plan of action put together. We'd love to help you out in building that strategy.
All right, let's look for another question. I see Myron Warren. I'm going to pick apart the question just so that I fully understand what the question is, right? So he says, good afternoon. I have a battle buddy who's been waiting on a response through the PACT Act. Okay, so then let's go to, he's currently at 90%, but was told by a VA insider that because the numbers with VA math equaled 94% instead of 95% to get him to 100%, he would need to find another issue to get him over the top. Does this make sense? Yes, that makes sense to me. If I'm reading it right. So let me try to break it down a little bit more. So if you say that you are, if he's waiting for a response through the PACT Act, I'm assuming that we're talking, he filed a claim for one of the PACT Act presumptives, right? And at 94%, I guess, whenever you do a strategy, I'm going to try to explain this without confusing anyone. So when we put together a claim strategy, we, based on your symptoms, try to identify before filing a claim what you're entitled to so that you know what rating you would expect and deserve to get back, right? So if I am at 85%, right, and I file a claim for rhinitis and I meet the criteria for a 30% rating for rhinitis, I'm going to add that 30% to my 85% VA math, which I don't have my calculator up, but that would then tell me that if I do the math and I only get to 94%, that's why I would say I need something else, right? Because if I know that I won't get anything higher than a 30% rating for my rhinitis, and that 30% is not going to get me to 100, then yes, I will need another issue to get me to the top. So it made sense in that way to me. I hope that helped, Myron.
Our coach brains are so, it made sense to me as well, because we see that, and almost every day I'm pulling up a VA calculator, looking at the veterans' disabilities that I'm working with and being like, okay, here's where you actually are. We know VA math is fuzzy, is what I guess it's been called. If you check out our vaclaimsinsider.com/blog, you can actually search VA math, and there's an article that kind of goes into the specifics and has a chart that you can use to help with that. I'm not good at regular math, so I always use the calculator. There's calculators available. There's one on our website where you can put in each condition, what body part it's affecting, add them all up, and know your true rating. So Myron, man, your friend is so close in at 94. And it sounds like if they're working with a VA Insider coach, they're on the right track. But another condition may help bridge that gap between 94 to 95. And then that, they're at 100 from there.
Yeah, so don't give up.
Definitely not. All right. Essie Rangel says, what happens when they lost our medical records in Iraq? So this is a common issue we see. A lot of veterans don't have access to their records, or when they've requested them, they come back, with gaps and holes and things missing that they know they sought treatment for. This can be frustrating, right? And sometimes there's not necessarily a way to access lost records, or if you were, part of the crew that maybe had some burned in a fire. I know that happened at some point. What our strategy is figuring out, okay, well, what evidence do you have access to, or can you get access to, or maybe new evidence to support your claim, and then take that route, build strategy around what records you do have available. Just to be honest, not every condition can be service connected if there are things missing, but your coach is going to figure out what you're dealing with and what the pathway is. So don't get discouraged in that way if you're missing records, or maybe there's a way to get them and you haven't tried it yet. So we'll point those out as well.
That's right. So Wilhelm Geisler noted since 2019, severe feet problems, tingling, hurts to walk, etc., worsened lumbar spine, use a walker with seat to get around, used every legal VA paid meds, Percocets, Demerol shots daily. Don't know the question. However, it sounds like, one, you've got a diagnosis, you've got current treatment. If you're not with a coach yet to explore how you could potentially link this to military service, then sign up, get with a coach, because looking through your records and kind of seeing, okay, is this something just because it's since 2019, but I need a little bit more information, right? Like I need to know when you separated from the military just to determine the gap. I need to know if you have any complaints of this in your service treatment records aside from your current situation or since 2019. So get with a coach, upload your records for them. They'll be able to determine whether there's a way to link that there, whether it be direct or whether it be secondary, or whether it's an increase, because I don't know if you're service connected for anything.
Yeah. I was going to say, Wilhelm, for one, I'm sorry that you're dealing with all those physical pains. We know, working with vets every day, that a lot of you are in just chronic pain all the time. So for one, if you're not at all service connected, follow Coach Rachelle's instruction before. If you are, for maybe one of those physical things, and you haven't yet thought about or been service connected for how that's impacting your lifestyle or mental health, things like anxiety and depression, that could be a potential pathway. I think sometimes people don't think about that. They're just like, well, I need to get my back rated higher. Sometimes it's at its max, but you may be dealing with this lifestyle impact of pain every day, not being able to walk and things like that. And we want to make sure that you can get taken care of in that way as well.
Right. Let's see, Valletta Morris. What do you do if you have tinnitus without hearing loss? So 2 separate conditions. You do want to look at the rating criteria for hearing loss. I always say, like, typically hearing loss won't warrant much of a higher rating than 0%. So if you're not with a coach, maybe explore other claim strategies, other approaches, or if hearing loss is the best strategy for you. Coach Cassie, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. I'm muted to cough. All right. So Nicholas DiCasola, he says, I have a problem with a VA doctor telling me he doesn't want to read 2,000 to 3,000 pages, and then he still received no rating. He put a clarifying comment that just says that this was at a CMP exam, right? So I think what's important and what we do a lot of in our strategies is the fully developed claim. Coach Seabury mentioned that earlier. I've mentioned it a couple of times. And while all the evidence you submit as part of your claim will be accessible by that CMP examiner, they may not look at all of that right then and there when you are there. They may look at it as they draw up their own report after they've spoken with you. But what would be better, and this is just, a coaching tip, is rather than submitting all 2,000, 3,000 pages, pull out the specifics. What condition did you file for? Pull out the specifics. If all 2,000 to 3,000 are for that condition, maybe pull out the most pertinent things, when you're first diagnosed, treatment over time, and when you're most recently diagnosed. That way, they're not having to sift through all the pages, but they can look at 2 or 3 pages and see exactly what you're looking for them to review and give you that decision after the fact. Now, you may just need to do a supplemental claim at this point and give some more pinpointed evidence or further evidence to support your connection, but don't give up.
Good. Let's see. Victor Bassinger. I don't know if that's how you say that, but hello. If a veteran was denied service connection for sleep apnea with a nexus secondary to PTSD and they are at 100%, I'm going to say this word, should they ask for a higher level review? So this is definitely, a personal decision on like what is your essential goal, right? In service connection. Some people want a condition service connected for different reasons, right? Whether it's a terminal condition that they think should be service connected because it will provide benefits for their family after they are no longer with us, or whether it's just acknowledgement, right, that the service caused a condition. But on the should statement part, right, if you are at 100%, if there is a condition like this specific situation, sleep apnea secondary to PTSD, and you're at 100%, you're now risking a reevaluation of both of these conditions, not just the sleep apnea being evaluated, but also your rating for the PTSD being evaluated. So it's typically recommended that once you're at 100% to try not to poke the bear, right? Unless you feel, any of those other things that I had mentioned prior is as to the reason why you want to get something connected.
Yeah. And I'll just re-clarify, right? Because some people really just don't know. But once you're at 100%, filing another claim doesn't necessarily get you any added benefit. No additional monthly benefit or things like that. Now, there are some specific circumstances that I think Rachelle mentioned as far as special monthly compensations that will add. But if you have to make sure you qualify for that specific thing before reopening a claim for it, right? Because you just don't want to risk them looking at everything again. But, a coach is pretty good about figuring out, do you qualify for this? Would it be a good pathway for you? So if you have further questions on if you should take further action, then get with the coach and we'll let you know.
For sure.
All right. Gerald Crump says, why is it that the VA denies claims based on character of discharge, especially if you did not get a bad conduct discharge? So, one of the first things we always looked at is the character of discharge, because if you have had an other than honorable OTH, then in some cases you may be barred from benefits, or there may be only certain benefits you qualify for. So in your case, I would almost ask, do you have 2 separate periods? Did you maybe have one period that was not an honorable discharge and one that could have been other than honorable? In that case, you would want to specifically file for claims under your honorable service. While that seems kind of silly, it's all based on time frame, right? If you had a condition that you were hurt during active duty, but that was not an honorable discharge or not qualified discharge status, that may continue to be denied until you upgrade that status. So there's a lot to go into upgrades and a lot that goes into figuring out your specific question, but I would say look at that. See if maybe there's 2 different discharge statuses and if maybe you warrant an increase or an upgrade.
Right.
And then just in case you didn't see it in the comments, Kelly, Morrow, you can ask your questions in the comment. Just type it out there and we'll review it and get to you.
Let's see. I'm looking for another question. I saw some more timeline questions. Just kind of scrolling through here. So just to kind of touch on that really quickly and move on. For example, how long from CNP exam does it take to get a decision? Many factors. I had a vet who completed their CNP exam. It went to decision, but then went back to another CNP exam because there was, their CNP was incomplete, or one of the questions wasn't filled out, or a box wasn't checked by the CNP examiner. So there are so many different things that could factor in the processing of a claim. But the big part is after a CNP exam. So like, let's say I had a CNP exam today, November 22nd. I want to check va.gov within a week or 2 to see if my claim is being updated, to see if that CNP examiner has maybe sent up my CNP exam to the VA yet. Or I can even call, right? If I've been waiting almost 3-4 weeks from my CNP exam, I could call the CNP examiner and ask if they've sent up their report to the VA yet. Or I could call the VA hotline, right? Always feel free to call the VA hotline. I mean, don't call them every day or every week. But if it is a substantial amount of time that you've been waiting and just, want to clarify, where is your claim in the process? You can call that 1-800-827-1000 number. There's also another resource if you want to kind of share, Coach Cassie, about VA Vera, a little bit of information there that might help some of our veterans asking these questions in the chat.
Yeah, so VA Vera is a great resource, a VA resource where it's, a representative that can answer questions, claims related questions. And while it could be hit or miss because it's a big system, right? When you call the VA hotline, you get some people that may be very helpful and some that may not be. And it's kind of the same with the VA Vera, but I think it's worth a try if you've already called the VA hotline so many times and you're just at your wit's end, what's going on with my claim. So you can set up an appointment virtually on their website. You can set up an in-person appointment and just ask them questions, specific questions, or if there's, something that you're looking for that is claims related, and they'll let you know if that's something they can provide or if there's a different avenue. But I find that, or have found that some of my vets that have reached out and maybe it was caught up somewhere in the process on the back end, they've been able to take steps to get that moving in the right direction. Again, I can't give any guarantees because, it's not our entity, but it is an option. So VA Vera, VERA. If you look that up online, you'll find their website and be able to set up an appointment that way.
Yeah.
I was just looking at a question in the chat and more have come through, so I lost it. Just one second here. I apologize for the delay, guys.
Anticipation.
A lot just came through. Well, I'll just use a different one, right? And Robert's coming through with a lot of good questions, so thanks for being here. He says, how much weight does the VA put on VA primary care providers' diagnoses during their decisions process? So a diagnosis is a diagnosis, right? As long as it came from a medical provider. So they shouldn't give any less weight to your diagnosis just because it came from a VA primary care or even if it came from a private care doctor. Now, the main thing is just the evidence that's backing up that diagnosis. And then further, if you were to get a private nexus, you want to make sure that the medical rationale supports that opinion as well. So it is a diagnosis. VA primary care, the best way to verify if you have a diagnosis is maybe look up your Blue Button report, which is your VA medical record that can be found on My Healthy Vet, and just go to your problems list. Usually if you're diagnosed with a condition, it's going to be listed on that problems list. And if it's not, but you're being treated for it, just check in with your primary care and see, if you are diagnosed with that condition.
Perfect. I did see a question, a couple questions before that question by Robert, by Jay Brown. I have PTSD service connected. The doctor said that the meds aren't working for me. Should I file for an increase? So that's a good question. Now, what I'm going to say that is understand the VA rating criteria for PTSD. That will help you just plainly see if you meet the criteria for the increase, right, before filing for it. Now, the fact that you're getting treatment and it's supportive to your medical records, there's just some specific symptoms associated with what would warrant an increase. So, Jay, if you aren't familiar with our VA Claims Insider resources, check out vaclaimsinsider.com/blog and type in PTSD in there. I got some really great breakdowns and infographics that break down the rating criteria for PTSD.
Good question. Johnny Ray says he has a few claims that got deferred and he has a C&P exam on December 5th. So just telling you, good luck. And if you haven't yet, review some of the symptoms for the condition you're filing for and make sure that you know how to talk about what you're dealing with when you go in there. And there's kind of a little bit of a taste of the C&P prep you may get if you're a part of VA Claims Insider. Just to plug it here, we do C&P prep one-on-one when our vets are scheduled for exams. We also have live C&P prep classes hosted multiple times a week. Unless there's a holiday. But, we're here to make sure that you're feeling confident as you don't go into those exams. See any other good questions in the chat?
Yes, I saw Jadrian Gamble. I happened to get diagnosed with asthma while in Navy boot camp, so I got medically discharged. Can I get benefits? So yes, if you got a diagnosis, you could potentially, right, get linked to military service. There's the Kaluza triangle that has to be met. They do look at entrance physicals to make sure that it wasn't a pre-existing condition, especially when it happened in boot camp, right? So that diagnosis, current treatment is going to be a factor as well. It's not just about the diagnosis in service, but also what is your current condition and if it warrants a specific rating, because there has to be to a compensable degree or at least current treatment within the last year or two. Definitely get with a coach if you haven't already to kind of walk you through what that type of claim would look like.
All right, I'll just go right down the list here. So John Hall says, just submitted a memo for record on a bad C&P. What is the general process after submission? I called QCC to report it. That's one of the contracted VA examiner offices. And then the VA as well. And they said they couldn't see it yet. So we talked a little bit earlier about if you have a bad C&P exam, turn around and report it, right away, same day, next day. You don't want to wait until your decision comes out. And so, John, just so you kind of know what to expect after that, is you may not see, an acknowledgement or receipt of the complaint. Ultimately, what we suggest is log the complaint, call like you did and complain that way as well to both the contract office and the VA. And then you do just have to wait for your claim decision to come out. Now, it doesn't always mean that they're going to give you a new C&P exam, but what it means is that if you get an unfavorable decision, maybe the C&P examiner, didn't have everything that they should have had because of the bad C&P exam, then they should have access to and see your uploaded memorandum or memo about the bad C&P exam. And you may be able to direct them back to that if there was an error in fact or law during an appeals process if it's needed. I know that's a lot, kind of gets into the weeds a little bit. That's why we always say, if you're not signed up yet, get with a coach, let us review. I would say maybe wait for your decision. And then if it's not favorable and you still need to take action, we're here to talk you through that.
Absolutely. That decision letter is a big piece of that conversation you would have with a coach. So definitely once you receive that, you'll want to show that with your coach if you already have one, and then develop that strategy from there. I see this question from Kelly Morrow. What is the process for increasing my rating higher than 60%? I have Agent Orange issues such as diabetes and neuropathy, plus other things, and think I should have a higher rating. Well, Kelly, what is the process? So first, get with a coach. And that way you guys can look at all of these conditions and develop the proper strategy, right? Whether, what is the path of least resistance? What will get you the higher rating from the 60? Because it sounds like you have a number of different conditions that can be considered. So it's just a matter of in what order to do it, and then which one would be a higher value claim for you, right? What would get you that higher increase first, and kind of just work your way to 100% from there if that's what you deserve.
That is good information. Let me see. Bobby Jacobs says, hello, how can I get a copy of my rating code sheet? So you can call the VA hotline in a lot of cases to request your rating breakdown, which will show everything you're rated for and the specific codes they're rating those conditions under. You may also find some of that code information on the decision letter in the rationale section. So you'll go down quite a few pages in the letter itself, and usually it'll say exactly what code it's being rated under, so you can evaluate if it's rated properly.
I see we've got just 4 minutes left, so we'll probably have to maybe just choose one question each, Coach Cassie.
I'm fine.
I know time flew by. Let's see which one? Now I feel pressure like it's another timeline question. I'm gonna skip that.
I saw that too.
All right, wife has CMP exam for knee this Friday. Any insight for prep for that? What to expect? All right, so good luck to your wife, first off. Second, for examinations for knees, physical conditions, musculoskeletal conditions, expect a range of motion exam for that. So definitely be able to speak to symptoms, stop at the point of discomfort. What else can I spew out there? If you're prescribed anything by your doctor, make sure you bring it. As in what to expect. I guess just be uncomfortably vulnerable, right? Like I know a lot of the times we downplay our symptoms. Like if I don't have a flare up on the day of my evaluation, I still want them to know how frequent and severe my flare ups are, right? If I'm unable to do certain things, if my knee causes me limitations, be able to kind of paint that picture. You basically want this doctor to understand what a bad day is like for you, right? And how and what you experience on those days. Coach Cassie, anything to add on that real quick?
I was looking through comments while you were talking, but I would just add, if you didn't mention it, instability, right? If you deal with instability, it's given out while you're walking. That's something that's important and can factor into a rating separate from a lack of range of motion and things like that. And then I was going to touch on some other questions, but honestly, we're running a little bit low on time here. So if we didn't get to your question in the chat, or if you're just not quite sure if the program is right for you, then sign up for a discovery call. And we mentioned that a little bit earlier. You should see a link up on the chat of where you can do that. And then talk to one of our team members. You can also go to vaclaims.help to sign up for one of those calls. And then if you'd like to sign up for a coach, you're ready to jump in and have us start reviewing some of the information that you have, then go to vaclaimsinsider.com, or either me or Rachelle's link if you want to chat with us specifically. We'd love to do that. You can also learn about our mastery program. What that is a VA Claims Insider Mastery is a self-paced online course. It has 3 modules, 20 video lessons, and a ton of templates that teach you how to file a successful VA disability claim online and how to increase your current rating step by step. So that's an option as well, and you can check that out online.
And then for our elite members, thanks as always for the love and support. We saw you guys in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us and encouraging your fellow veterans. Don't forget to tune in to our live classes via Zoom 5 days a week, Coffee with the Coaches, medical exam prep, and Women's Wednesdays. If you're not a part of our Facebook group, definitely join, follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, Brian's book, You Deserve It. There's the 2nd edition. It's now available. Order yours on Amazon today, or you can now also download a free copy of the book by going to youdeserveitfree.com. So don't miss out on that.
And that is the top of the hour. We really appreciate you guys all being here, giving questions, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon and coaching you through your process.
Yeah, and I'd like to apologize again that we didn't get to all of the questions, but thank you all for joining us, and join us next Wednesday. Every week we like to have these Facebook Lives, so don't miss out. Thank you all for being here.